Sucker Punch Productions set a rather impressive standard for PlayStation exclusives across 2 generations. Rather than continue the tale of mutated people trying to fight for their right to survive, or players controlling a raccoon who has mastered the art of thievery, Sucker Punch wanted to enter a more realistic period and setting, where players are thrust into the late 13th century of feudal Japan. As swordsman and samurai Jin Sakai, players will work to prevent a Mongol invasion from completely taking over Tsushima Island. During a time when the samurai was held high in regard, like many, I was thoroughly excited to see how well this journey into war-torn Japan panned out, while potentially retaining or exceeding the high level of quality Sucker Punch is known for. Following an exhilarating opening sequence and a few introductory missions in an effort to better explain the game's core systems in regards to combat and stealth, players are given the opportunity to explore Tsushima Island, a land split up in 3 significant portions, with each section being connected to the narrative's 3-story arcs. Beyond the main story missions and side missions, combined totaling over 90 missions, are a plethora of collectibles including cosmetic items for Jin's clothing, shrines that must be climbed to attain stat-boosting charms for equipping into Sakai's katana, special maneuvers that can only be obtained by finishing the search-driven mythic tales, and places to peacefully construct haikus. As per most open-world games, a majority of what is offered isn't necessary to enjoy the story, but does add some interesting layers to particular NPCs, as well as provide some of the game's few funny moments. After almost 60 hours, I completed the final mission, after finishing all the side quests, attaining more than the necessary amount of collectibles, and liberating all of Tsushima for the Platinum Trophy. Sucker Punch thoroughly embraced the idea of being a samurai in battle with Ghost of Tsushima. The game informs the player incredibly early that patience is usually the key to victory, while always being aware of one's surroundings. A mob of enemies can cut Jin down incredibly fast if the player doesn't learn proper timing in regards to blocking and parrying. By hitting the block button right before Jin is struck will cause a parry that can not only temporarily slow down time, but also stagger an enemy for an immediate counterattack that may prove to be a one-hit kill. Learning the various enemy patterns connected to the specific adversaries Jin will encounter, including fellow katana wielders, armored foes with shields, or annoying spear users who can strike woefully quick, is imperative for success. Another big factor in taking on specific enemy types are combat stances. Each of Sakai's 4 stances are meant to be used against a particular enemy, such as Stone Stance being effective against those solely using swords, while Water Stance can break the defenses of someone pushing forward with their shield. Players can change stances on the fly during battle by simply holding down the right trigger and hitting the face button associated with the desired stance. Late in the story's second arc, Jin is given a 5th stance that is available in short bursts, with activation only coming by defeating a certain number of enemies without taking any damage. Ghost Mode. Ghost Mode is reasonably overpowered and becomes a goal for players to attain during bigger battles, just to see Jin cut down frightened enemies with single strikes. Standoff scenarios also provide players the chance to perform one-strike battles. These standoffs actually get harder as the story progresses, with the enemies pulling off feints, and failures resulting in Jin losing almost all of his health and still having to fight. But Jin's katana and stances aren't the only tools available to him. Early in the story, Sakai is gifted a half bow and arrow set. This medium-range bow introduces the game's stealth system, though players can be vicious by setting the half-bow's arrows on fire. The longbow that Jin can gain provides heavy arrows that usually end in one-shot deaths. Longbows too have secondary arrows, with the explosive variety. Throwable items such as kunais and firecrackers can be used for adversary destruction or a momentary distraction, respectively. All of Jin's tools, outfits, and weaponry can be upgraded, thanks to the various items or supplies either located around almost any given area or dropped by fallen enemies. While weapon and distraction item upgrades increase their effectiveness, Jin's outfits being upgraded may buff his overall health, make it easier to find collectibles, or even increase the amount of kills Sakai can perform during a standoff. Upgrades are also connected to Jin himself, as technique points are gained by earning experience points dished out via kills, completed missions, and liberated Mongol-conquered villages. These character upgrades can add more moves to the 4 base stances, transform wind chimes into firecrackers, or even help Sakai find the copious amount of collectibles. Upgrading Jin can also help the samurai grow as an assassin, or as he's dubbed by his growing admirers, the Ghost. Being a ghost in combat not only changes the way a player can approach missions with stealth takedowns and even poisoning enemies from afar, but also how the world sees Jin. A major portion of the game's narrative is Sakai coming to terms with dishonoring the samurai code in an effort to help his people. Through the various missions, be it main or side, Sakai is given the opportunity to assist those he needs to fight alongside him in an attempt to overcome the Mongol threat headed by Khotun Khan, a wicked individual with a snake tongue and the fighting ability that rivals any foe Jin must conquer during the game. Seeing the level of barbarity the Mongols will reach to win, Jin confronts the code his life is built on, much to the anger of those who only see the honor of the samurai as the proper way to win a war. It is narratively presented, though, as Jin embracing his new persona, even if the player sticks to the honorable ways of the samurai in battle. While the story isn't revolutionary, the presentation, world lore, and general characterization is so well done that it's nearly impossible for any player to not become emotionally attached to Jin and his allies during their few successes and various struggles. Another grand positive in regards to building the world's lore are the amount of collectibles available. While some collectibles like the Shinto banners and pillars of honor are solely connected to changes in the colors of Jin's outfit and sword holster respectively, areas like the hot springs and fox dens allow for the boosting of Sakai's max health and the effectiveness of charms. There are even quick button scenarios known as Bamboo Strike that, when completed, helps boost the resolve meter that is responsible for manually restoring Jin's health. There are even optional duels to test Jin's skills. Instead of just making collectibles something to pad playtime, Ghost's extras improve the player's chances of success, while giving them some stylish options when traversing the world or in the heat of battle. The touchpad has several functions, with Jin being able to scout for enemies, bow, or utilize the game's guiding wind waypoint mechanic by simply swiping in a specific direction or pressing the touchpad down. Unfortunately, there are times when the touchpad is a little too sensitive, and trying to say stop scouting enemies may result in Jin bowing at the most inopportune time. There are various little impressive things, like animals that will actually attack both Jin and Mongols, a single bird that shows up whenever Sakai is near a collectible, how certain areas give players a treat if they bow at the proper shrine, and a stellar soundtrack. For all its positives, Ghost does have some issues in regards to combat and platforming. There is no lock-on system when Jin is swinging his sword or throwing a sticky bomb. There will be many a time when the player is attempting to strike a staggered enemy, only for Jin to swing to his right to slash someone not as close as the player's intended target. The same can be stated about throwing some offensive items like the aforementioned sticky bomb. A little more control over the targeting would avoid some annoyances with fighting large mobs. Another issue is the fact that a majority of the objects are solid, and the camera won't see through or move past said obstruction like a tree or nearby wall when in combat, making it impossible to see what Jin and his enemies are doing without manually moving the camera. The AI in general can be hit or miss. When in battle, enemies are aggressive and smart, but the AI can greatly fail when trying to chase a fleeing Jin, and easily give up when they can't identify his location any longer, hastily returning to their point of origin. Climbing and platforming takes its inspiration from games like Assassin's Creed, with some of the movement when going from ledge to ledge being too rigid and stiff. Thankfully, the checkpoint system during platforming sections is pretty forgiving. From a presentation standpoint, the game is shockingly made with the English dub in mind. While there is a superb Japanese dub available, lip syncing leaves something to be desired when using the Japanese audio. There is also no option to skip cutscenes. Though massive in scale and featuring some superb graphics, Ghost is optimized to near perfection. Beyond some graphical glitches here and there, Tsushima runs smoothly, while not featuring any game-breaking bugs or broken missions. Load screens are minimal, with fast traveling from one end of the map to another taking upwards of only 3 seconds. while shorter distances sees Jin warp in almost an instant. There are also several adaptability options, including a black and white filter to honor legendary director Akira Kurosawa. Ghost of Tsushima will go down as one of the best PlayStation 4 exclusive games of all time, worthy of every bit of praise bestowed upon it like a legendary warrior attempting to save their people. Undoubtedly, yes. Ghost of Tsushima has everything a great open-world game this generation has to offer, including a plethora of missions, collectibles, and upgrades. Beyond the prototypical genre tropes are a stellar combat system, memorable characters, a gripping story, and one of the most impressive photo modes in modern gaming. There's no reason a PS4 owner shouldn't add Ghost to their library. That is unless you don't like to save people from a conquering horde in brutal fashion, or pet the cutest fox in the world.